We were talking about the extinction of the species, or we can say the loss of biodiversity, right? So in the previous session we have considered what is the loss of biodiversity and how many species, different species have been extinct. Around 27 species are extinct within 20 years, right? And more than how many? 15,000 species are under the threat of extinction right now, right? So what is the main cause of loss of biodiversity? There are four main causes of loss, and those four main causes are together collectively called as the evil quartet. Quartet anta helidre, it's a group of four. Evil anta helidre bad anta heli ashte. So the evil quartet. There are four main reasons which they are called as the sobriquet that is used, the word that is used to call them as the evil quartet, right? See, these are the four of them: habitat loss and fragmentation, overexploitation, alien species invasion, and co-extinctions, right? So these are the four most common causes that we see here. So habitat, first let us consider the habitat loss and fragmentation. See, it's a very simple common sense that when people lose their homes, obviously they will die. That means, so any organism, if it loses its home, that is the habitat. So when there is no place for survival, how can any organism survive? That is what is habitat loss. And what is fragmentation? See, if there is a big patch of forest, say for example ಒಂದು 100-kilometer forest ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, and in that patch of forest, in a particular area, maybe there is a family of monkeys, or maybe there is a group of tigers or lions are living in that particular patch of forest. And because of human greed, if they are going to destroy a particular patch of the forest, middle alli ello ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಅದನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದ್ರೆ, then what will happen? So the entire family will be broke apart, right? As a result of which the organisms, the animals, they tend to die. They too have emotions, and they too have their family, immediate family, kith and kin. So because of that pain, they will also tend to die. So this is what is called fragmentation. Andre ಒಂದು large area, when the large area is considered to be a habitat for a particular species, and if you destroy that, maybe in patches or entirely, that accounts for habitat loss and fragmentation, right? So most important cause during the plants and animal extinction was this one only, right? And the most dramatic example for this habitat loss and fragmentation being that in the tropical rainforest, so at what rate the diversity was lost was 14% was the rate of the entire forest, but now it is 6%. Right? So the most dramatic example for this loss of tropical rainforest, at the fastest rate, 14% it got reduced to 6%. So, and another example was the great Amazonian rainforest, which is called as the lungs of the planet anta kariteve, right? So Amazonian rainforest, it accounts for thousands of acres of the land in the South American continent. And so this forest, recently, last year, it was burning. Not last year, in this year only, in the 2020 only, right? It was burning, and thousands of acres is already burnt, right? But apart from the natural calamities, this Amazonian rainforest, it is actually exposed to the destruction by human beings for the purpose of animal grazing. Animal graze ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ for lawns, the grasslands ಅನ್ನ ಗ್ರೋ ಮಾಡಿ animals graze ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ರೀಸನ್ ಆದ್ರೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಾಯ್ ಮಾಡಿ they tend to grow soybeans there. So they are destroying the lungs of the planet just to grow soybeans. How ridiculous. Yes or no? So these are the main reasons of the habitat loss, the biodiversity destruction or loss of biodiversity through habitat loss and fragmentation. Besides pollution being a major evil here, which also threatens the survival rate of many species, right? And breaking up large areas into smaller fragments has also affected many animals and plants very badly with respect to their habitat. So I just told you the same point. right? So example, habitat loss and fragmentation ಗೆ example ಯಾವ್ದು ಕೊಡಬಹುದು ನೀವು? This one tropical rainforest ಅಲ್ಲಿ 14% ಇದ್ದದ್ದು 6% ಗೆ reduce ಆಗಿದ್ದು. Another example that you can give here is about the Amazonian rainforest, the lungs of the earth, which has been destroyed mainly for growing the soybeans and also for raising the grass for grazing of cattle. This is the first reason. Second reason being the over exploitation. See, we all tend to over-exploit certain species of plants and animals. Commonly, for example, ಈಗ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು particular species of fish ಇದೆ, which can be very tasty, and people they go and they search and they will catch only that particular type of the fish or species of fish. Eventually, what will happen? There will be a drastic decrease in the number of the individuals of that particular species of the fish, and one fine day it will be extinct forever. This is what is called as over-exploitation. Similarly for plants also, maybe for some economical use, maybe for timber, maybe for maybe for medicinal purposes, right? Or maybe for any other purpose. The plants, they have been cut drastically, and if any one particular species of the plant, like for example, ಗಂಧದ ಮರ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ, ಸ್ಯಾಂಟಾಲಮ್ ಆಲ್ಬಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೇವೆ, ಗಂಧ, ಶ್ರೀಗಂಧ, right? So at a particular period of time in Karnataka, it was richly growing, and after that actually it was cut extensively because of its high economic value, right? And after that the government also introduced a very strict rule not to cut that Santalum album tree, and also that it has no permission. People have to take permission to grow that on your own also, right? So anyway, when need turns to greed, see, for need everything will be available in the nature, definitely, but not for our greed. So human beings, more than their need, they actually destroy the biodiversity for their greed. So many species have been extinct over the last 500 years. For example, stellar sea cow, already we have seen the example, and another example is passenger pigeon. ಈ ಎರಡು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಅನ್ನು ನೀವು ಓವರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಟೇಷನ್ಗೆ ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಸ್ಟೆಲಾರ್ ಸಿ ಕೌ, right, and other is that was in Russia, and passenger pigeon is another example for the loss of biodiversity or loss of extinction of species because of over exploitation. Presently, many species of marine fishes are under threat of extinction because of harvesting, because of over harvesting, right? So this is about over exploitation. The next factor in the evil quadrant is alien species invasion. I've already told you about this in the previous session. The species which are not native to this particular land, which are from some other habitat, when they are introduced into this particular habitat, they will actually cause the invasion, they will actually cause the extinction of the other native species of this land. ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವುದೋ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟೇಟ್ ಇಂದ ತಗೊಂಡು ಬಂದು ಈ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟೇಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಟಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಅದು extinct ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. They are going to disturb the native species of this particular habitat. This is what is called as invasiveness of alien species, right? So unintentional or deliberate introduction. Sometimes, see, it happened so actually when World War II was going on. So there was actually people were transporting wheat to different countries. Wheat was getting transported in gunny bags through air. ಹಾಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ unintentionally what happened was the small seeds of Parthenium that fell on the ground, even in India, right? And those seeds, they started growing very abundantly. And Parthenium, once it starts growing, it will be a weed, and it can also harm the agricultural crop, the actual agricultural crop in an agricultural field. ಪಾರ್ಥೇನಿಯಂ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ, ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ವೀಡ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ದಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಅನ್ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನಲ್. ಇನ್ನು ಡೆಲಿಬ್ರೇಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನಲಿ. ಲೈಕ್ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, there is a plant called Eichhornia. You have heard about Eichhornia even in first PUC also. Eichhornia, for its beautiful flower and also beautiful shaped leaves, spoon-shaped leaves. So it grows well in the surface of the water. So adakke actually to beautify the lake, it was introduced first time in India in the West Bengal, in Kolkata, right? But then only after the introduction of this particular plant they figured out if they grow this particular plant, it will not let any other plant to grow in the surface of the water body or the lake, and it also disturbs the survival of other species, other plants and animals in different ways. Right? So unintentional or deliberate introduction of the alien species many times has turned out to be the cause of decline and extinction of indigenous andre native species. So examples, these two can be the examples, best examples. Then pitkollebekagiruvanತಹ examples. One Nile perch. Nile perch is a species of fish. It was introduced into Lake Victoria of East Africa. That led to the eventual extinction of ecologically unique assemblage of more than 200 species of cichlid fishes. More than 200 species of cichlid fishes. So these were actually unique assemblage, ecologically important species. 200 species were extinct because of the introduction of only one species, that is Nile perch, into the Victoria Lake of East Africa. Right? And similarly, recent illegal introduction of African catfish. African catfish in India. African catfish, you need to remember the name, scientific name, Clarias garipinus anta heli. It has become a threat to the indigenous catfish of India. Indian catfish there, right? In the Indian lakes, normally Indian catfishes are found. But because of some recent illegal introduction indagi African catfish in marta ide, Clarias garipinus, it is actually killing the Indian catfish. So the Indian catfish is under the threat of extinction today, right? So these two are the best examples for alien species invasion, right? And you can look at the plants also. So alien species invasion is also common for plants. Now we had considered two examples of animals. So these are the three examples of plants which you also need to remember. This is a plant called lantana, normally growing as a waste plant or a weed in gardens. Right? So it is actually intentionally grown for its beautiful flower, beautifully colored flowers. And this lantana, it was also deliberately introduced into India, and today it has become what? It has become a bane, because idu bere plant galanna belilike bidudilla. These plants, they produce a certain type of chemical substance, toxic chemical substance, which actually will not let other plant species to grow in the near vicinity. And also it keeps on growing, it keeps on spreading very rapidly. That is what lantana is one. And I was talking about Eichhornia. This is what is Eichhornia. Eichhornia, you can see this is actually growing in a water body, but it is covered in such a way that you are not even seeing the water there. So when complete water surface block sunlight cannot enter into the water body, and that extinction of many species under the water can also take place. Another example is Parthenium, Congress weed anta karitivi. This is the Parthenium plant, right? So these are different examples that you need to remember regarding the alien species invasion. And the last reason for the loss of biodiversity is co-extinction. Co-extinction means what? If one species gets extinct, the other species which is associated with it, maybe for food, maybe for habitat, maybe for anything, so that will also get extinct. So this is most commonly observed in plant-pollinator relationship. You have studied in the sexual reproduction of flowering plants chapter. So if a pollinator has to pollinate a particular plant, it is always specific. Right? It is not true that any insect can go and pollinate any particular species of plant anta Allah. Right? So there is always specificity between the plant and pollinator, and there are so many other obligatory relationships or obligatory interactions in which the organisms are involved in. And if such animals, or if such species of the organisms, if any one of this gets extinct, the other which is associated will also become extinct. When a species become extinct, the plant and animal species associated with it in an obligatory way will also become extinct. So the extinction of the host fish causes the extinction of the unique assemblage of parasites also. Ali parasites may be microorganisms, or maybe small insects, or maybe small immotile organisms, maybe mollusks or sponges. So adu kuda extinction agutte because they are particularly dependent upon that particular species of fish. The fate can be seen also in the plant pollinator mutualistic relationship. So ನೀವು ಇದನ್ನ ಎರಡನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೊಡಬಹುದು for co-extinction. Right? So these are the four main causes of loss of biodiversity, and in the next session let us talk about the conservation of biodiversity, how to conserve, why to conserve, all these aspects in the next class.